Good afternoon. I'm Gomati and my partner Chandu. We are here from Intel, and we're going to walk you through our journey to big data and primarily how we give business value through Hadoop as a technology. We come from the platform engineering team, and the data warehouse, enterprise engineering is all in my team, and big data happens to be part of that. So just we'll walk you through the agenda and then get started. And just to recap on the legal notices, whatever we say here, there's just an information, no warranty. Don't come back and quote us on anything. And we typically don't share all the product names and the vendor names that we use in our enterprise, only the ones that we have legal approval we will share. Agenda, we'll talk about our big data journey. We started our journey back in 2011, and we'll walk you through how we started small and went big, and share our data warehouse architecture, our vision for 3-year roadmap, big data ecosystem architecture, and our best known methods that we can share with you all as you walk through your journey, and summarize and wrap up. We do want to allow some time for questions. Hopefully now we can share our learnings with you all. So before I begin on our journey, I wanted to pulse the audience here. How many of you are still in the explore phase, trying to figure out what use case you want to chase for your company and your business, and you haven't still set up the platform? How many of you? Quite a few. And how many of you probably have had it for 1 year and you've already been delivering business value? All right, few. And then big business value that you can demonstrate, anyone? All right, good to know. So I think this is going to be helpful as you start figuring out and navigating your way through this. And Chandu, feel free to chime in. I'm going to cover some of the first few slides, and Chandu will take over. So back in 2011, what triggered us to even look at this? So we were the typical BI data warehouse and giving business value through BI reporting tools and storage platforms. And we had an opportunity pop up from our software and sales services looking at recommendation engine as we were looking at the app store as well. So Telmap recommendation engine popped in, and our analytics team, which is our parallel team, started doing some development on Hadoop, and we thought it is a great opportunity to get our enterprise engineering team into exploring how we can set up the platform ourselves. This is all open source, and we successfully did it for them. And the interesting thing here is we didn't go off and hire a whole bunch of people with Hadoop skills. We had some passionate people in the enterprise engineering team that jumped in and learned themselves, and many of them are in the audience here, and some of them had the presentations at the tracks. So you will be able to meet them. I think it is a big accomplishment in terms of getting people from our middleware engineering and the BI engineering to start learning our Hadoop skills and build our own platform. At that time, we just picked up the open source, and then Intel started our distribution for Hadoop. And then by last year, we were able to run a full path to production environment. We have a pathfinding environment all the way to the production environment where some of our use cases are giving big business value to our customers. I'll later talk about those. So our big jump last year from Intel distribution to Cloudera platform helped us a great deal in terms of cutting short the engineering time when we are picking up new capabilities. So it's always a good idea to take open source and then build on a robust platform so that you're focused to help the use cases. And that's what pretty much Chandu and team are focusing on. There is at least one capability engineer that's helping every use case that is coming up from our business groups. And this slide basically talks about how we started off with just 2 use cases in 2012, and now we have about 8 of them running in production, another 12 running through POC. So typically, we offer a private cloud environment to run POCs and then jump onto the production environment when they are already seeing the business value. And I will talk about the key 3 use cases that Intel has found big business value. And before I jump into that, you can also see some of the key points here. We are spending only less than $1,000 per terabyte. The cost that we have invested is about $300K overall on the hardware. And the team that is doing the platform engineering and helping all the use cases is about 10 headcount. So before we talk about the use cases, I want to play a snippet from our CIO, Kim Stevenson. She has gained an award from the Wall Street. Go ahead.
We're at the beginning of the next era of computing, where business models in every industry are being redefined at a pace never seen before. Industry leadership will be built by predicting emerging needs, delivering new experiences to meet those needs, and executing better than your competition. The path to achieving industry leadership is through the analytics made possible by big data. These changes are not easy and will challenge the conventions in most companies. Working differently with big data will reframe how you see your growth opportunities and will also enhance your operational performance. This will allow you to move faster and more efficiently than your competition. Our industry is also being reimagined with mobile devices, the Internet of Things, and wearables. Big data helps us to identify opportunities proactively to reduce our time to market and improve delivery of our products to match customer needs. This helped us drive over $351 million in incremental revenue and reduce the time to market for new products by up to 21 weeks. Intel invested in Cloudera as part of our belief that big data will continue shifting the business paradigms in every industry. A year later, we are more certain than ever that our roadmap will bring incredible capabilities to analyze enterprise workflows and add new context to every business decision. Together, Intel products and Cloudera's Hadoop distribution are enabling businesses from every industry to solve untapped market challenges and deliver new industry-leading profitability.
Yeah? Okay. So this slide is a snapshot of the CIO Top 100 award that Intel's CIO was recognized for bringing business value through IT's efforts on big data. Now, big data encompasses Hadoop, so all this 350 million is all not all of Hadoop, but nevertheless, right? If you look at the 76 million value, it's all the work that we've done on the sales and marketing side. We have a program called SMART. What this program has been focusing on is helping sales and marketing team to get insights into their customer leads information. We collect both internal and external data on the pattern of customer interest in our product, the timing of their interest, and which customers are interested in. So if you look at the volume of sales and the way we sell, we have about 140,000 resellers. So it's almost impossible for the sales team to go and chase every reseller's pattern and where they would be selling and how much they're selling. So collecting this rich data that's out there from the external sources and our CRM and other systems has been helping us to drive some intelligence into chasing them for the right products at the right time and chasing the right people. And this has clearly given us, in some cases, a 5x increase in the revenues. And this is increasing as we speak. As of end of last year, we heard about 75 million revenue boost that we've gone from the big data effort. And this is targeted to go up to 700 million if we keep proliferating the way we are. The other use case to talk about is the test manufacturing. All our test tools collect a lot of humongous amount of data, and the more we can correlate and predict, we can reduce the test time. So the correlation has helped us to reduce the test time and get our products out faster. And of course, the security BI, this is obvious one, right? Everyone is worried about the threats these days. So we have use cases that detect the client anomalies as well as server traffic anomalies coming from external into Intel as well as the internal Intel users. You know, if somebody was to log in from here and within 2 hours I'm in the East Coast logging in, it's impossible, obviously an anomaly. So there is a use case that we originally had it on an MPP platform, and as soon as we saw Hadoop can do this, last year we ported it to Hadoop, and essentially, you know, this has brought down our TCO. So we have some great stories, as you can tell from this slide, and Kim, our CIO, has been a big proponent of this whole effort, and I think we are growing even bigger than what we are showing here. So I want to shift gears and talk about little bit about our vision for the next 3 years. Mainly, I want to call out how Hadoop plays in the whole enterprise architecture. We have a very complex pipeline for the data coming into the BI consumption, all the way from ERP and other non-ERP sources. And the data pipeline has been pretty much in a batch mode, and real-time analytics from our data warehouse is almost next to impossible. Not only that, whenever we have a data pipeline issue, it takes hours to fix it and sync up. We need to simplify our architecture. So the vision that we are drawing ahead of us is how do we leverage Hadoop to play as a data tiering solution, not so much necessarily to provide the real-time analytics right there. It goes in conjunction with an in-memory database that sits close to the ERP and the data warehouse that we have for BI traditional reporting currently. So as you know, the BI tools are growing. We have advanced visualization, advanced analytics, and we're trying to beef up the whole ecosystem in our architecture and also work with our other vendors to make sure the data tiering approach works. So what I'm talking about is, you know, keeping the hard data where the BI consumption is happening and cold data in a lower cost platform. So we are making our first step towards this vision, and I'll turn it over to Chandu to talk more about how he sees this architecture from a Hadoop standpoint.
Thanks, Gomti. Okay, Hadoop did not disrupt the data center, right? Data did. At Intel, we have a very good data container strategy. So what you see here is our enterprise data warehouse platform, which is a proprietary MPP platform, which we use mainly to do, you know, analytics, where we bring data coming from our transactional platforms, you know, such as finance, logistics, HR, sales, order management, and so forth. So we do all the data transformation, aggregations, and so forth on EDW, and data consumption also happens there. We have, you know, concurrent users, thousands of users running reports, doing standard analytics on that platform. And also we move the transform data into downstream applications where individual business units use, you know, SQL tools or Excel or you know, additional analytic tools on a SQL platform and do reporting. Along with the EDW platform, we also have another MPP platform, which we use mainly for manufacturing data. So it is more of an independent data warehouse, which is, in terms of volume-wise, it is fairly big, fairly large, about hundreds of terabytes. And it's mainly serving one business unit. And we are also, in the previous slide, what Gomti alluded to earlier about our in-memory technology, we are using in-memory database mainly to serve some of the transformational use cases to start with, and we are planning to grow that platform as well to some additional use cases, moving more towards what we call the shift left strategy. So all these platforms which you see on the right side, the in-memory, the manufacturing data, EDW, they cater to tier 1 mission critical use cases, structured data kind of use cases. Whereas on the other side, Hadoop, the way it's been positioned, not only as a data tiering platform for our in-memory database, it also is mainly for big data advanced analytics, of course, right? So it's mainly for catering to semi-structured, unstructured data. And also we are bringing in structured data sets, and because it's becoming more like a data lake, where we see use cases such as the sales use case, what you heard earlier, where we are able to connect all the entire dots in the overall customer journey. The one key point I want to highlight here is with Hadoop right now, until late last year at least, we would bring the data into Hadoop, do the crunching, and the consumption would happen more on a SQL platform. Because like query response times, when you run queries on Hadoop, they would run longer because Hive queries or whatever, they run on MapReduce. So it's more like a job. So whereas lately, what's happening is, at least the way I call it, more of a future present. It is as the SQL tools on Hadoop start to mature and in-memory capabilities on Hadoop start to mature, like Spark ecosystem and Spark SQL and so forth, we can run even the analytics directly on Hadoop. So end users can run their reports directly on Hadoop. The query response times are much, much better, more satisfactory. So that's, in short, overall how our data platforms are positioned and what use cases they're serving. A question you may ask us is, okay, you have all these different platforms, so how do you determine where a specific business use case would land? So like I said earlier, we have a robust data container strategy, using which we determine when a use case comes to our, to the engineering team, we make a call depending on different set of characteristics, whether it is data types or the volume, the capabilities which we need to support for that use case, or the data classification. Looking at all that, we say, okay, for this specific kind of characteristic, this use case should go onto Hadoop platform, or maybe an in-memory platform, because you need a lot more, much better response times, or you got to keep it very close to the transactional systems. So looking at our roadmap, we have seen our journey so far over the last couple of years, how we have evolved from a small system to growing to a more of a large-scale platform. At the same time, we have enabled some of the key capabilities which are really required for use cases to be more successful. So in 2015, our key focus is definitely security. The reason being, in order to make Hadoop more of an enterprise-grade platform, security is center of it, right? So we got to have role-based access controls. So we are enabling that as we speak. In the first half of the year, we already implemented Cloudera Sentry with LDAP authentication. As we speak, right now, we are in the midst of deploying Cloudera Sentry with Kerberos authentication. This will get all our Hadoop capabilities to have the role-based access control mechanism. And at the same time, we are also in the process of exploring data at rest encryption. This would give us the capability to deploy use cases such as top secret data, restricted secret data. So there are a couple of use cases which are waiting to land on Hadoop platform. With this capabilities, we will be able to meet those use case requirements. And data governance is a most talked about topic. Even yesterday, I was in the same room here where people are talking about Apache Atlas, where there's a lot of interest, right? So even in the Cloudera space and in the open source space, there are a lot of companies who are getting all these different data governance tools enabled. So our focus is to have the lineage framework implemented, data lineage, whether it comes, and also the auditing and metadata management. We plan to have all that enabled using Cloudera Navigator and some of our enterprise toolkit. So we'll integrate pieces of it so that all the entire governance capabilities are in there. And data discovery. So it's not just about landing data into Hadoop and waiting for all that crunching to happen and then get consumption happen from an analytics perspective. You got to have easy to use exploration tools available for end users so that they can do analysis, explore the data and understand the data set, the integration of the data much faster. So data discovery is something which is really needed, that whole capability. That's something which we are working on right now, enabling that capability. And self-service advanced analytic framework, what I mean by that is, all the machine learning capabilities what you have, we want to see that it's much easier to use, in a much easier to use interface for not only for data scientists, data analysts, it's also from a power user's perspective. They're able to bring the data in and getting those data sets, they're able to pick the right machine learning libraries in an easy to use format and be able to derive insights much faster. So that's what we are currently focusing on. And of course, the in-memory capabilities, integration with Hadoop, that's something which we are actively involved, getting Hadoop and our in-memory database to integrate well from a data tiering perspective. Advanced visualization and Hadoop, we have internally custom developed an advanced visualization platform, which is using open source tools. Mainly for this large data sets, you cannot really do analytics, have standard visualizations get the message out. You got to have advanced visualization reports. So we have enabled this whole custom platform. So we are have this integration going on with Hadoop. Along with that, a couple of other capabilities which we also have enabled, like search, Apache Solr search, and also a graph database functionality to cater to some of the use cases. And finally, all our in-memory and near real-time capabilities like Spark and Spark ecosystem overall, those capabilities we are actively working on. And Cloudera, Impala, and few other SQL capabilities, open source SQL capabilities, which we are looking at enabling. Looking towards the next couple of years, it's mainly about getting these capabilities ramped up. And we are also looking at getting Hadoop even more enterprise ready, more from a traditional BI perspective. And also we'll have disaster recovery so that we can cater to tier 1 and tier 2 kind of use cases. This is our conceptual architecture. Before I just go into a little more details, I just want to understand how many people here are really confused about all these Hadoop terminology. To a couple of us, it's more like one of my colleagues was saying, it's like really like a zoo, right? All these different terms. You call it pig, giraffe, and squirrel, and you name it, right? So many other words. And you cannot really understand where these individual tools fit in. You got to have a much higher level conceptual architecture, to see this whole big data ecosystem come to life. So what we did is we went and looked at creating this whole different logical blocks, and we started plugging in each of these different tools within those logical blocks. So we have, of course, infrastructure, middleware, in things like data integration, security, workload management. You have all these different tools, some coming from the Cloudera stack, some from third-party vendors. Whichever Cloudera is not able to enable that, we look at third-party vendors. And other capabilities like a storage model, whether it comes to columnar databases or SQL capability databases. And also there's a very good requirement from a graph perspective. Graph databases such as, there are a couple of open source graph databases which we are looking at. We have enabled one of them. And machine learning capabilities, also statistical capabilities like MLlib, residing on Spark. And from a presentation perspective, a lot of advanced analytics toolkits which we are looking at enabling. And like I said earlier, data discovery capabilities as well. So in short, you got to kind of understand this end-to-end picture, what all is needed, and then plug in those gaps, leveraging the right set of tools. Along with this, you also see the whole process and governance and change and release management. All that is critical for a platform and overall ecosystem to be successful. So let's see how our overall landscape looks like. We basically have a pre-production and production platform, which is a bare metal platform, of course, running on Intel. And they are basically mostly 2U, 1U boxes. We have completely high availability built in, for capabilities such as name node, resource manager, single point of failure components, both in the production and pre-production. The reason being, we would like normally to do complete testing in pre-production, whether it comes to upgrades or changes to parameters, configuration changes. We normally test all that in pre-production before rolling those changes into production. So some of our pre-production environment mimics the configuration of our production. And between pre-production and production, we have almost a petabyte of storage. By no means, we normally do not measure the success of the platform with the storage or the number of nodes. It's more of the business value, like what we alluded to earlier. So we are growing this platform, and the growth of this platform will be totally based on business use case needs and how we, what use cases we bring in. Just going back to the architecture a little bit more. So we have a complete three-way replication from a storage perspective and a production environment. And we also have gateway nodes, which are basically the edge nodes. That's the only place where users can log in and interact back with the cluster. So that's where they can copy the data in or run their jobs. All the data nodes are behind the firewall, so there's no direct communication to the data nodes. And on the other side of this cluster, one of the boxes, what I call out, is our Intel Cloud or pre-production sandbox engineering environment. We leverage OpenStack virtualization platform for that. We basically, before we bring in a use case into our development lifecycle, we like to have all the exploration work get done in this space. So we have, we stand up instances in a very quick turnaround time, and our time to market on this environment to stand up an instance is like less than 1 to 2 days maximum. And we have a couple of instances based on the use case requirement. They could be very early in the game in terms of running an early version of Cloudera, or maybe some additional set of open source components running on that cluster, which is not the same what is in our pre-production. So we do most of our exploration R&D work in this space. So finally, coming down to our BKMs, or Intel terminology, best known methods, we started small, like you have seen in our earlier slide. So skills and resources, as we grow the team, we got to give them enough time to ramp up. So you got to hire the right set of people. And you also bring in some of the experts from outside so they can help train these resources. And we put in a proper training plan, knowledge sharing plan as well, so that people can learn from their peers on the job training. And we also do more of like a community of excellence, where projects come in and share their use cases, where engineering teams go and talk about the capabilities and the roadmaps and so forth, so people learn overall. At Intel, we have several of these so that people can learn from each other. From a cluster perspective or from a platform perspective, it's good to start small. You don't want to go off and build off a 100-node cluster or a petabyte environment and not have any usage. And definitely, you got to focus on design and scalability of the platform. You would want to sit with your hardware vendor, understand the reference architectures, whether you want to make it a compute-bound cluster or a storage-bound or a balanced environment. It's important to understand what kind of use cases you are deploying on this platform. And moving on, the technical product evaluation. What I mean by this is, before you start off on your Hadoop journey, there are several distributions out there, right? So you got to understand which is the right distribution for you. Even we did that. Even when we started off with Intel distribution of Hadoop, we just didn't go in and pick Intel distribution of Hadoop and deploy it on our cluster. What we did is we did a thorough evaluation. We compared IDH to several other distributions out there. We looked at what is needed, what this particular distribution is lagging, and so forth. So all that is required in terms of the thorough evaluation. And it's, at least from our core principles, we kept it very core to Hadoop open source, Apache software framework, rather than picking a vendor who has proprietary components. The reason being, it's easier to move away from one vendor to another vendor and which we had to move from Intel distribution of Hadoop to Cloudera. And a couple of other key points to call out here. Security is definitely a big deal to Intel. I mean, you're seeing this here, and you heard from several other panel members, even today in the morning, everyone talking about security and all the core capabilities. So important to have the Hadoop environment, not only have the perimeter secured, but also have the right role-based access controls in place so that you have the right security and governance and so forth. And it's the methodology, what we follow, is more of an iterative discovery method, and I would suggest that's what other companies should look at following, because it's not like you come in and start jumping straight in and doing development, right? And we benefited in a big way with the Cloudera partnership. It's not just from a products standpoint, even from our IT side of it, we have excellent support working with Cloudera. They helped us solve our problems, and we also influence the roadmap heavily. So it's a two-way street. So we are working very well together. Finally, to leave you all with the statement, open source definitely plays a big role. So that's where Hadoop is going, being open source software running on commodity hardware. People are really realizing great value, leveraging this platform. Before we jump into questions, these are some of the white papers which we published. There are quite a few of our folks in the room here today who contributed to these white papers. Things like how we migrated from Intel distribution of Hadoop to Cloudera, what steps you follow, and our container strategy white paper in there, and also about how we implemented the overall big data platform in a matter of about 6 weeks. All the key BKMs and learnings, and there are a couple of other use case white papers as well. You can also go to this intel.com big data /big data site. There's a lot of good collateral in there, and videos and use case information. So that leaves us about 7 minutes for Q&A. I hope that's good enough. Anyone has any questions? Yeah.
How are you handling self-service?
So it's what we call it Intel private cloud. Yeah. So his question was about we said about a self-service cloud and how we are making it self-service, right? That's what you're saying. So we are not really at a self-service stage yet, but what we do have is a private virtualized platform. We use OpenStack on commodity hardware, and we are able to create siloed instances on top of that.
So it's a separate cluster than your main cluster.
Exactly. But where we want to go, hopefully in a year or so, we would want to give an interface to the users so that they can create their own instance with an appropriate CPU and storage and memory and create a cluster on their own. But the self-service part of it, what I said earlier was the self-service advanced analytics framework, which is, I don't know if you are kind of alluding to that particular capability as well. That is about having a easy-to-use interface with the right set of libraries available where people can bring in their data and pick up a appropriate machine learning algorithm and be able to derive insights faster. When I have one of our data scientists here, he can explain a little more about that framework. Any other questions? Yep. Yeah. All the links are on the white paper links are published on that slide. So you can just click on that and it will take you to the white paper. Okay. Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, so the question is, how are the users getting exposed to big data? Is it the consumption through the other backend platforms? It's both, actually. I mean, one way. You saw one of the capabilities I said about data discovery. You want to have the right tools and the right platform available so that the end users are able to get to the data much faster without waiting for analytics reports and so forth. That's one way we want users to leverage this platform. And of course, the other way is once all these different data sets are brought into the platform, they can, we expose this through any other front-end tools, what we already have in the environment. You name it. Excel is definitely one of them, right? So people get the data sets and then they can do analysis on their own. You want to add something?
No, I think the question is also about the principal shift.
Yeah, let me also chime in
Sure,
there.
yeah.
I think we've been successful in most of the use cases that were very specifically driven for a small use case that we know exactly what we're chasing. Where the challenges still are ahead of us is if we have a project where we put all the data for sales and marketing in a data lake, and their customer segments, each of their customer segments do a lot of different analytics use cases. And it is quite cumbersome for shifting that end user community or even in the embedded IT group that's sitting close to the business to get their prior skill set of just doing simple SQL queries or Excels converted into something that the development team can go and handle. So we are still kind of looking at how to build that ecosystem around Hadoop to make sure this business value can be going faster.
Any other questions?
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.